Penguin Audio presents Year of Wonders, written and read by Geraldine Brooks. Dedication. For Tony. Without you, I never would have gone there. Oh, let it be enough what thou hast done, when spotted deaths ran armed through every street, with poisoned darts which not the good could shun, the speedy could outfly, or valiant meet. The living few, and frequent funerals then, proclaimed thy wrath on this forsaken place, and now those few who are returned again, thy searching judgments to their dwellings trace. From Annus Mirabilis, The Year of Wonders, 1666, by John Dryden. Leaf Fall, 1666. Apple-picking time. I used to love this season. The wood stacked by the door, the tang of its sap still speaking of forest. The hay-maid, all golden in the low afternoon light. The rumble of the apples tumbling into the cellar bins. Smells and sights and sounds that said this year it would be all right. There'd be food and warmth for the babies by the time the snows came. I used to love to walk in the apple orchard at this time of year, to feel the soft give underfoot when I trod on a fallen fruit. Thick, sweet scents of rotting apple and wet wood. This year, the haystooks are few and the woodpile scant, and neither matters much to me. They brought the apples yesterday, a cartload for the rectory cellar. They were late picking, of course. I saw brown spots on more than a few. I had words with the carter over it, but he told me we were lucky to get as good as we got, and I suppose it's true enough. There are so few people to do the picking. So few people to do anything. And those of us who are left walk around as if we're half asleep. We are all so tired. I took an apple that was crisp and good and sliced it, thin as paper, and carried it into that dim room where he sits, still and silent. His hand is on the Bible, but he never opens it. Not any more. I asked him if he'd like me to read it to him. He turned his head to look at me, and I startled. It was the first time he'd looked at me in days. I'd forgotten what his eyes could do, what they could make us do, when he stared down from the pulpit and held us, one by one, in his gaze. His eyes are the same, but his face has altered so, drawn and haggard, each line etched deep. When he came here, just 3 years since, the whole village made a jest of his youthful looks, and laughed at the idea of being preached at by such a pup. If they saw him now they would not laugh, even if they could remember how to do so. "You cannot read, Anna?" "To be sure I can, Rector. Mrs. Montpelion taught me." He winced and turned away as I mentioned her, and instantly I regretted it. He does not trouble to bind his hair these days, and from where I stood the long dark fall of it hid his face, so that I could not read his expression. But his voice, when he spoke again, was composed enough. "Did she so? Did she so?" he muttered. "Well then, perhaps one day I'll hear you, and see what kind of a job she made of it. But not today, thank you, Anna. Not today. That will be all. A servant has no right to stay once she's dismissed. But I did stay, plumping the pillow, placing a shawl. He won't let me lay a fire. He won't let me give him even that little bit of comfort. Finally, when I'd run out of things to pretend to do, I left him. In the kitchen, I picked a couple of the spotted apples I'd culled from the buckets, and walked out to the stables to see to his horse. The courtyard hadn't been swept in a senate. It smelled of rotting straw and horse piss. I had to hitch my skirt to keep it off the muck. Before I was halfway across, I could hear the thud of the horse's rump as he turned and strutted in his confinement, gouging clefts into the floor of the stall, because there's no one strong or skilled enough to handle him. The stable boy, whose job it was to keep—
Sample complete. Ready to continue?